It is what it is. So, um, thank you, Deanna. Um, as I started to say, we, the financial committee, planning committee, on our last session had discussed doing a series of Think Like a CEO review of the podcast every other Monday until we get caught up through season 5. And today we're going to cover the first 3, give or take, podcasts that are currently out there, created by Gary Keller, the Think Like a CEO review. So today is going to be an open discussion. I would appreciate it. I would love to have a open dialogue. Of course, I have my ideas and outline of what I want to discuss. And at the same time, I love to hear feedback from everyone regarding the podcast, what you thought about it, what your takeaways may have been and your ahas, right? So everybody wants to call when you're on an appointment. Does anybody else experience that? Like it's dead silent beforehand. And then when you have a scheduled appointment, you get all these calls. So my apologies for those. Until I get my admin, I am my admin. So feel free to take yourself off mute to join in on the conversation. I guess I'll just go ahead and get started in terms of the very first, not podcast, but the very first interview that Jay Papasan had with Gary Keller. Described a little bit of the journey of how he left high school and thought he was going to be a rock star, right? He thought he was going to be in a band. And I find that pretty interesting and fascinating now to see him on stage, having conferences, holding conferences, and being a guest speaker, in today's world, in different venues. To think about him actually starting as a high school rock star or wanting to pursue being in a band. I find that very interesting. And I think it speaks a little bit to his integrity and character to know that he realized he wasn't good at it, right? I think it's great that he had that foresight to know that he wasn't very good at it and he needed to find something real quick to make money and be a successful adults, because many of us hold on to certain dreams in certain positions and titles just for the idea of thinking we can make it. Sometimes we need people identify that they are better coaches than they are players, and so everybody has their own roles to play. Did any of you, and I'd hate to call out names, it's a couple of us on here, did any of you have any takeaways from that particular podcast? And it was, I call it rocking into his, I forgot the title of it. Let me pull it up real quick. But I kind of summarized that as rocking into his career path. Do you know what the name of it is, Deanna?
I do. Hold on one second. I'm pulling it back up now.
Okay.
I can definitely say that session 1 started off slow for me. Um, I
Say that
just
again. You paused.
Oh, sorry, session 1 started off slow for
Okay.
me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I did find it funny that he did know exactly. It's like, this ain't gonna work. So to be able to just take yourself out of a situation, I thought that was amazing, because how many people can do it knowing it might not work? I
Right.
was actually, yeah, I sing. I used to be a performer. But I was like, that ain't for me. So I can kind of relate to it in a sense, but it was just so slow to pick up. It was definitely a lot of information that came in with it, but it was just really slow for me to start off.
Okay, so getting into the podcast for you was a little slow, and the first session was from rock and roll to real estate was the title of it. So for you, you feel like it was a slow start to listen to the podcast? Yeah.
It was, and I was in the car dealership too, so they could tell you anything. It was probably me.
It's not you. I have listened to that thing 5 times, and it's almost that saying that said throughout KW. I don't know if Keller, Gary Keller was the first to say it or not, but I forced myself to listen to it a few times. It's like getting used to being the boring things. I don't know the exact quote, but it's being okay with the boring things so that you can have that life by design. I guess it goes along with scheduling and creating that ideal schedule and following it, and not reinventing the wheel or creating something new for yourself, so that you can be successful and do other things that will lead you to profit. Hey, Dana. So yes, the first podcast pretty much talked about his journey into becoming a real estate agent, and he is Gary Keller, identifying that he was not a rock star. He needed to find other income, and that journey of going to college where he didn't even think about it was truly revealing. Like I said, it speaks a lot to his character and his integrity to be able to make that adjustment quickly versus holding on to a dream. Um, did anyone else want to share their ahas or their opinions about that particular podcast? Even if you found it boring, I love to hear that part too.
It was definitely good information. I just was.
It is hard to get into because you have to be someone that likes to hear people just talk, almost like talk radio,
Mhm.
right? So, like I said, I've had to sit down and listen to. The best thing for me is being on like an elliptical and just practicing like I'm
Okay.
running and just having it in my ear until one day something sticks out and stands out, right? And just revisiting it over and over. Um, so the second podcast, since I'm not getting too much interaction, I would like to stop and say, Dana Elliott, your hair is the bomb.com, honey. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. You on mute. I don't know if you saying something, but uh,
Thank you.
you welcome. I love it. It says like it fierceness. It says I am a CEO. That's what that says to me. I don't know about anybody else, but it's like, yes,
Thank you.
welcome. You got that blue jacket, that this is not what we're supposed to be talking about, but your picture in the background kind of it stands out. You're
Oh, okay.
noticeable today. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Sweetheart.
So we're just going over like the podcast. Today we're gonna go over the first three like takeaways and ahas. The reason why we're doing this is the financial committee thought that we could maybe get the conversation going, get the mindset going of the market center to think like a CEO. So the goal is hopefully people are listening to the podcast and the different resources that we have available, or using the resources that we have available to be a profitable business, whether they decide to be millionaire real estate agent producers or not. Just to be think mindful and create the habit of profitable thinking. And so we said for the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about the Think Like a CEO series. Today, we're going to cover the first through the third podcast in season one, those first 3 episodes, and then talk about the ahas and takeaways. And since we don't have any from the first one, and we accept that it was a little rough getting into the podcast itself, I think we're going to carry on and talk about the journey through failure. And so, to be quite honest, I started thinking, listening to it again this morning, just to get, refreshers and takeaways specifically for today. And something that stood out to me that kind of lets me know how he came up with the why. Oh, I'm gonna mess it up with our values. See, I need you to come off mute and say it, Dana. You need to help me.
Y for T, two C's or something. Y for C, two T. There you go.
There you go. And I know it's been modified a little bit. Rodney would probably kill us for not having that ES in there. At the same time,
Right.
the values are there. And in that second episode, he talked about being a spiritual being and having a minor physical experience. So this is where he talks about how he went through divorce and started to experience financial hardship. And he had to take out loans. His business partner wasn't doing well, so he had to take out loans to buy out the shares to keep the business going. And so this is his journey through failure, pretty much is what this one talked about. And I think that's impactful for us to know, because again, he being Gary Keller is someone that is on stage. He is invited to different platforms for interviews. People model his model, and to know that in 1986, he went through financial hardship so much that he had to take out loans. Why y'all didn't tell me I ain't look right on camera? Look.
Cute girl, you cute.
That's okay. I lost one. That's okay. But how he going through the divorce and everything, it caused him to seek outside help for one, in terms of speaking with a psychiatrist, and two, reaching out to other financial resources to see what wasn't working for him. So he describes it as a spiritual being and having a minor physical experience. It wasn't feeling good to him or feeling great to him to go through all of this process. And he identified that when he was having a win, that, it's almost like when you get a touchdown, you're in the end zone and you spike the ball and you have this great reaction. And then when things aren't going well, what do you do? And so he describes what he actually does, in terms of having that self-reflection. And I hired outside help to kind of document the things that he was doing to be successful, through the counseling sessions with the divorce, identified, why he may have been making the choices that he was making. And then when it came to the financial piece and creating the revenue share aspect, which turned out to be something he had to adjust. I call it a failure, but it's truly more of a learning experience. He was able to review and adjust those things. So that was primarily my first aha out of that podcast. Did anyone have any ahas from that part of the podcast, or in any part of the podcast that you'd like to talk about?
For me, you definitely see him starting to leverage. That's what I pretty much associated all of his actions to. Once all of the failures and reevaluating, he began to leverage, and I think that's where it started to make the difference. One thing that I got was the ultimate test for people is strategy, going bigger and faster without sacrificing culture, and that was one of the things that he had mentioned.
Yeah.
There. Um, so yeah, a lot of people, like, everybody want to be Beyonce, don't nobody want to put the work in, you know?
Right.
That's
So that's pretty much what I got from it.
absolutely. And also identifying what that work is, right? Because it took a lot for him to, one, I thought it was big of him to say that he spoke with a psychiatrist to see what happened, and realizing he made the wrong choice. Like, he had to ask the question to get married, right? And then to be able to identify that the revenue share wasn't working. So going out to that leverage piece of Deloitte and asking the accountants, okay, what's wrong with this business plan, because it didn't feel well to him. The culture wasn't well, to your point. So yes, I definitely wrote that down as well, because he was creating more of a self-seeking environment versus a culture of coming from contribution that we now have. So once he identified that, he had to go back and go to these people who have voted for this plan to be in place, and then turn back around and make an argument to readdress and evaluate it. So I definitely commended him on that. Any other takeaways?
I didn't listen to it. I had planned to, but what's the easiest way for you guys to be reminded when those podcasts are available? Are you like setting up alarms for yourself? And the podcasts, are they found on the Kelly app or just any of
So
your
they're
podcasts?
wherever you get podcasts from. So I have Apple. So I use Apple Podcasts. If you have Spotify, I think you can Google for them.
Yeah, I got a Google one. Okay.
But they're not hard to find. It's just wherever you would get music most of the time, you can probably get a podcast from it.
Okay.
And we're
I
on
didn't know if everybody was using a unified, source.
It's
we're
just
only on season 1 too, so it's not
right.
no pressure. We're not trying to start and catch up today.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they also have it on YouTube, the season 5 only, on a KW
Channel.
website. Yeah, the KW channel. They have season 5, but that's the only season that they have available out there on YouTube. So that's another resource. But yeah, however you get your podcasts,
That's where I go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So is there a time where, Dana, you've experienced an opportunity of growth?
I always have opportunity to grow. I'm not organized, so I'm getting my little counselor, my growth partner, and my life coach together. I got an appointment on April 23rd, so I'm following in the footsteps of old greatness. So yeah, like what is getting in my way? Why would I commit? Commitment issues.
Okay.
So I definitely feel what he's talking about. Like, how do you get to that next level and commit to it? Because it's not like the opportunities aren't there.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, because I think you hiring somebody that can maybe see something that you don't see is in a valuable piece in you being a CEO of your business. He hired somebody to identify his steps, like the things he was doing and why he was actually doing it, in order to create the franchise model that we have in place. Initially, he was going and was doing licensing agreement and kind of wore himself out, right? However, he hired somebody to come in and document the things that he was doing on a daily basis. I can't remember for how long,
Oh, that's a
but
great idea.
I think that's an excellent idea. Then my next question is, who do you hire to do that? So I guess that's my task to do at a later point, to figure out who that person would be to come in and document, because you get so into the day-to-day of everything. And what he mentioned is that he didn't realize that he made these decisions because maybe the sun was in his eyes. So like, you may take a left on a road because you couldn't see a certain way. The why part of it, because he was just naturally doing things, was something that he didn't think about explaining to the people he had licensed. And so I think episode 2 is
Mhm.
it starts to pick up a little bit where episode 1 was like, okay, where we going with this?
Okay.
in
Mhm.
in the interview process. Um, so there are a lot of little gems that he does. In, like, to Deanna's point, the leverage piece, where he starts leveraging these things because he's doing it. Somebody else is identifying what he's doing and documenting it. And they're in the process of saying, well, why are you doing this? Which
Mhm.
helps him identify that and sell it at a later point. Um, let me see. And also something that Deanna said, which I noted, was putting people first in terms of the culture. He started identifying that something was different when he created the revenue share. He wanted to be able to create a model and take his top producing people with him to, like, this next level while he was going through some financial challenges and things. So he created the revenue share as an option so that they can stay and it would be something of value to them. But it turned out to be a little bit different in culture. And that's not what he wanted. For him, his model was people first, right? Um, so, and he wanted to see if it was sustainable. So then when the revenue share model was created, he presented that to a group of auditors, accountants at Deloitte. And I guess I'll play that part because I wanted to have people hear that section. So give me just 1 second while I pull that up. Works. There's like some funky numbers, like 11,292. Can you guys hear that?
We were debating. I was negotiating with my top negotiators to get to where we thought it would be fair.
Well, we experimented. One of the programs we went to, we paid out 80% of the money, of 80% of the profit at one level, at a level to our people, which turned out to be very regressive, right? At that point, why make a profit?
Right.
You better spend the money than do it. And so we had to go back and do another vote.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had gotten really aggressive and I had massaged the numbers around trying to get as close to what revenue sharing might look like, right? But it had to be had to have a reasonable return to business. Because now all of a sudden, we're now looking at the return on the business and we're measuring that. Whereas before we just run the company, right? Now we have a guaranteed cost or a guaranteed expense to run it called revenue sharing. And then we're racing to see if we can make a profit. Can we grow big enough that ever would turn into a profit? And now, by the way, the numbers are a little weird, right? Why is the number that, right?
Right.
And the reason, the levels of when we share the money, and the reason was because we were massaging the examples on and comparing that back to what revenue share would look like. That's how that came out that way.
You flipped the switch, and now instead of being revenue sharing, you're profit sharing. What was the biggest change you saw, and how long did it take?
Immediate. Everyone lined up. If we don't make a profit, they don't get paid. So now the company has to make a profit.
They're asking different questions.
They're asking a different question. And that is, how can we run the company as lean and mean as possible so there's as much profit to be shared as possible? And understand it's the 80-20 principle. What I loved about that program, still love it to this day, by the way, we've paid well over $1 billion out in that program since we created it. And I think over 1.2 billion to be exact. it's an equal opportunity, unequal reward, meaning that that program does not determine who gets the money. People will determine if they want to invest the time and energy to get that money.
And we know that some people invested a lot. We talked about Althea in the last one. She followed you around, rode in the car with you as you built the company out,
Sure.
and built the profit share tree right around you.
Yeah.
Some people made that a business.
Yeah. One of our top agents literally said, "I get it," and
Okay, so that's just a little bit of it. I meant to, a little bit before that is where he talked about how he presented it to Deloitte, and then he presented it to everyone to change the structure of everything. So sorry, my screen went out. I just knew I was going to have Gary Keller in the screen. It's okay. But so to that point, I think the next aha and the next episode, he goes more into documenting processes and tracking, and how important that is as you're going through the process. And it's ideal to do it when you're in baby stages, so maybe you don't have to backtrack, go all the way back to document your processes and tracking. But that allows you to be being more profitable, which is the main reason why you have the business, is so that you are profitable. Did anyone have takeaways from either episode 2 or 3?
Well, I've already disclosed I've got some catching up to do.
Well, that's fine. That's fine.
I sent you.
Sam, let me see. You sent me what?
Oh, Dana, I sent Dana the link for.
Oh, I
Google.
got it. Thank you.
Okay. Sean, Joe, or Sandra, did you want to hop on at any given time to give your take on the first 3 episodes of Think Like a CEO?
I'll need to listen to them actually. So I guess I wasn't clear on what this was, but it's still good for me to hear you all's takeaways. But I'll just go listen to them on my own and be prepared for the next one.
Okay. Is there anything that we may have said so far that you may have said, hey, I didn't think about that, or something that you wanted to, you're thinking about, okay, maybe I should implement something this way? I know it's a general conversation.
I don't think that I've heard anything that I haven't heard before. I think that just in general, everyone hears a lot of things and we just don't implement it. I think Dana said that earlier, and it's just about doing it, honestly.
Right. Is there any barriers that you guys think you're running into that causes you not to do certain things?
It always boils down to mindset.
Okay.
Always boils down to mindset, because everybody has the same ability to do the same things, because we all have the same license, right?
Right.
It's mindset.
Right. Okay.
Now this is a physical condition.
And even that is not necessarily the hindrance, because then mindset is
Leverage.
Exactly. So it's just about, I want to see if anyone else had any other reason why that my question was is there any other anybody else
Obstacles.
Obstacles that they may encounter that may be hindering them from getting things done?
one example that I see on a day-to-day basis is call bias. And I can honestly say that when I was out in the field showing and selling, I hated calling people. I just absolutely hated it. I didn't care, like text me or whatever, but I did not like it at all. So that was one thing, having to push through. And what was that, Bold 2019? Having to push through and call people that I didn't even want to talk to, people that I forgot about, numbers in my phone. I was just like, hey, it's Deanna, you know. So
And I can see
yeah,
that.
that was definitely a boundary that happened to push past, because it was just like, you've been in my phone for all these years, I might as well talk to you, huh? So yeah, that's one that I see on a day-to-day basis. Even with the DTD2 going on, people still don't want to. I can understand.
Well, I did all my DD2, then it worked, but the same thing is the same thing with me, Nyala. You've heard it before. It's always leverage. Like, I just cannot commit to somebody. Like, I just get nervous. Like, am I doing the right thing? Am I spending the right amount of money? Am I paying them too much, too little? How many hours do I really need? Is there enough for them to do when they get here? You know, am I thinking I need help when I really just need to do something different with my mindset or outsource some stuff? Girl, I'm all over the place.
Well, you preaching to the choir, the congregation, and the deacon board over here. So I definitely get that. Sandra, did you want to chime in? I thought I saw you on mute.
I did. I have a real problem with like the sales kind of aspect of being in real estate. And that sounds weird because that's our job. But when it comes to like financial wealth building, I am so comfortable with that. Like, I love that. I'd rather do that than anything else. So if you guys need someone to like help you get started or anything like that, I'm available. And then you guys could help me with the sales aspect of real estate. We can exchange.
Okay, so I'm loving this in interaction and exchange. It's so much better than me trying to recap what the CEO Think Like a CEO podcast is, because I think Dana hit it on the head in terms of mindset and the way, and I think our perspective and the way we look at things, right? So if we look at things a little bit different, the things that we look at will change. And I like to think that I'm in the service industry and I'm learning to love my community. So my community is my database. And I'm learning to love to learn more about them and what they may need. Because what I'm finding is sometimes I may talk to one person and then 5 people after I've talked to that one person, that 5th person may have a resource that first person has. So to the point of the dialing and having hesitation of it, I think of it in terms of what is it that I can help today, and if it's just a hello, then let me provide that, right? And then to the point of Sandra saying I don't like the sales, well, that's ultimately what sales is. You know, we're not in the business of selling vacuum cleaners where the cubby door-to-door salesman says, hey, I have this vacuum cleaner, this is what it is, and this is how it works, let me show you how it is. I thought about that analogy earlier today. I don't know why, but we're in the business of, I think, for me, relationships. So yes, someone may have a house to sell. At the same time, outside of that house, why are they selling, right? Is it another job someplace else? Say North Carolina, for instance. Well, I have North Carolina agents that can help them locate a house there, right? So we're providing a service, not necessarily selling them on anything. And in providing the service, they get the opportunity to choose me, right? And if I offer enough service that is beneficial to that person, then I will be that resource for them, right? And in terms of leveraging, Dana, you and I are in the same boat.
I want to get on the phone some days, so I know it's gonna get busy. Like, oh my Lord, if I get on the phone and start making calls, it's too much work than I can deal with. But I really want to go back to Sandra. I understand everybody is not that high D or that high I, that salesman person. So you just have to own who you are. And then also, not trying to get all deep on y'all or anything, but we are here to serve others with our talents, like our God-given gifts. And so if you keep it, kind of going in with that mindset, how may I serve you? Really, that's all what it's about, because they're going to decide the house that they want. You just provide them a service on how you're going to get there from a spiritual sense. Like, this is what you've been blessed with. Bless somebody else with your gift, and making sure that they are have all that they need to get into a home, right? Or sell a home, or make a move, whatever they're doing. You know what I mean? But yes, it's a balancing act. I mean, I'm a chatty person. I'm always stirring up business. And there's nobody that's going to say, hey, yeah, my mom just moved in town. I'm like, oh, really? Where's she moving to? Is she find a place? What neighborhood? What city? What day is she moving? I mean, what's the time frame? And your salesmanship will I guess change the longer that you've been in the business. You'll know what questions to ask, and it'll just be routine for you. It's kind of like your own internal script. So it just depends on what you want to commit yourself to.
Right. I agree with that. I don't know why I have an echo.
There's no echo on this end.
Okay, good. So with Sandra Lee, as she was speaking, and if I could give any bit of advice, is maybe create a financial group. I would love for, and I'm gonna put it out there, I would love for her to co-host this with me, in terms of providing tidbits on the financial pieces that she sees valuable and where she sees people may need improvement on, right? So coming from that contribution will allow other people to gravitate towards you, to get that leverage and say, okay, let me invest in other homes. Because I think, and forgive me if I'm misspeaking, Sandra, you feel free to come off mute. However, you help people in the investment side of things, right? On being able to purchase homes for investment purposes. So that's maybe a MREI type model that you'd want to target. It may just be a different type of clientele. You're off mute. So, I don't know. Hello?
Can you guys hear me?
Now, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually what I've been doing. I've been speaking to people about how to become debt free and how to build wealth. And those are the clients that I actually service when it comes to purchasing property. Like the last person I did like 2 weeks ago was a church sister of mine that wanted to start flipping houses. And so I walked her through that process and helped her purchase a property. And now she and her husband are flipping that property. So it's not that I'm not comfortable getting into assisting the people around me. It's more of assisting people that I don't know outside of my sphere, if that makes sense.
Cold calling. Yes, that's what that is.
The cold calling. That's absolutely, that does make sense. And
what we do.
You said what, Dana?
That's what we do.
Okay. Yes, we do that. It took me a minute. And so
just trying to make y'all laugh a little bit.
you succeeded. Thank you. I appreciate it. And so with that being said, I'll be willing to do that offline. We can talk more about that and what that looks like. I think it may be more of like Facebook ads and just having the conferences, just like home buying seminars, just in the form of investing. And that's where it's important to document. So I imagine with the training that you have so far, Sandra, you have documentation and you've tracked like the success of the clients that you help.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Um, with with the documentation, are you? Let me see. Okay, checking on the time. With the documentation, are you? Um, did you do that yourself, or did you have an outside person help to document and track?
I did it myself.
Okay, and so can you take us through like a 2 minute? How did that look like for you to actually document your processes and tracking?
Well, the people that I work with are family and friends. So the initial meeting that I set with everyone is exactly what you guys were saying earlier about mindset when it comes to real estate. It's mindset set when it comes to financial stability. So I usually have to convince them, first of all, that it's possible, because a lot of people don't think that they could become financially stable. And then I have to whip out my little story and my little process and show them how I went from being severely in debt to having no debt at all, having my retirement. If I want to retire today, I could walk away, and I'm only 40. So I have to get people to see that it is possible. Then I go through their financial uh, information, where it's their assets, their liabilities, their debt, their income. And I sit down with them and I actually build out a financial plan for the person individually, just for them. It's not like a catch-all kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then on a weekly basis, we have meetings where we go through to make sure that they're hitting their goals,
Mm-hmm.
or to make sure that they're striving for the next goal. And all the people that I work with, oh my gosh, like from the beginning to where they are now,
Mm-hmm.
when they look at what they've achieved, they themselves don't even believe it, because it's when you're not focused on something, it, it's all over the place. But when you are focused, when you're like laser focused,
Mm-hmm.
you can achieve 10 times more than you ever thought you could. So that's what I've been
Absolutely.
seeing with my clients.
Right. So that's awesome. I'm glad you're able to take them through the journey. And with the documentation piece, have you written down those steps? And I know it's customized. So there may be a section in your steps that says customization. Have you actually done that so that in the event that you have 1,000 people in a room that you're speaking to, you can take them through this system and kind of have them implement and duplicate it? Or if
Yeah,
someone wanted to say that again?
there's a financial coaching kind of step-by-step guide
Uh-huh.
that they can fill out so that I can know what to address.
Okay. Okay. So you have written that through and you had them document that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's along the lines of what Gary Keller kind of outlines and identifies in the podcast, that he had someone outside of himself. It sounds like you were able to do it with yourself as you went through the process. Either you documented it, or after you went through the process, you wrote everything down step by step and have been able to help others outside of that. Um, in his journey, he had somebody document it for him and then was able to package it from there. So it just sounds like that the documentation and the tracking piece is very critical and crucial, which is what I took away from podcast episode number 3 in season 1. And then also prioritizing and scheduling is number 2. Um, so that we remember why we do what we do, um, and have our task line up with the reasoning and our purpose of why we do what we do.
That would be the calendar class. Having an agenda. Get you to your goals.
Absolutely. So something you said also, Sandra, that I wanted to kind of tailor us off to on this particular session is knowing our why. And so would you mind telling us briefly your why? And then Dana, if you don't mind sharing what your why is, and then I'll share mine.
So in 2016,
Mhm.
I had a lump in my breast and I got very sick and I had to stay home, but the bills didn't stop. And so I just decided that my big why was to make sure that I didn't have to work if I didn't want to, and I could leave something for my family where they were financially stable. That is always my driving purpose, to make sure that we do not have to work as hard as our parents or the people before us if we don't have to.
I got a question, Sandra.
Sure.
What were you doing before real estate?
I was the management for Blue Cross and Blue Shields of Kansas and for Peach State and Sunshine Health. So I was working with Medicaid and I was working with insurance companies in a management position.
So how'd you get into financial planning?
I actually got into it from the Dave Ramsey program. I wanted to become debt free. And so I took the Dave Ramsey program maybe about 10 years ago. And they had a financial coaching class, and I went through that. And I wanted to make sure that the people around me had the same opportunity that I did. I think a lot of us, we don't have the information. It's not that we cannot do it. It's that we don't know how to do it. It's that it's so much and it's a lot of moving parts that we think it's difficult and we walk away. But if there's somebody that can say, hey, here's a blueprint and I can streamline this to be efficient and easy for you, once we do that, other people will follow.
Gotcha. I'd like to set an appointment with you.
I'd like to set an appointment with you too. You look like a beast in real estate.
I can be beastier if I got my finances ready so I can make sure I pay somebody every week.
And I've actually been doing this for my family and friends for free. And I know it sounds crazy because people are like, you could pay for these consultations. And I'm like, come in 2022, you will. But for the past 3 years, I've been doing it for my friends and family for free. And a lot of them have been able to purchase homes, save, get out of debt, change jobs, because I also like revamp their resumes, whatever it is to get them to have a better life. I do that for free.
Wonderful. That's a gift.
And I want to be on that call too, if it's okay, Dana. Maybe we could do a group session.
Mine would be therapy, though.
Oh, okay.
Not your kid.
I'm like, okay. All right.
Yes, my fears here.
Tell us your why, Dana.
Well, it's funny because we talked about this as an ALC, as ALC members, that I really didn't have a why, just making sure I provided for my kids. I was transactional based agent for 20 something years, just transaction based, like no big goals, no big why, just trying to get through one year after another, paying for tuition, paying for car notes, and just trying to survive as a single lady with children. So, and so this year, it's all about really, getting what I call on my board here, get my grown-up bone in real estate this year. And so I'm trying to do things a lot differently, because again, I'm not a survivor, I'm a thriver. So that's my big why. And I think about what Sandra talked about, like what happens if I get sick? Who's gonna take care of my baby? Sandra, I started all over again. If you don't know me, I had a baby at 48. So my big why is making sure that if something did happen to me, I do have some income coming in, rolling off of that. If I had to be laying on my back, right, I need something coming in. And then also to make sure that I have you know, more than enough for her if anything should happen to me. You know what I mean? So there you go. There's my big why, making sure I provide for my kids. Not
Love
to travel
it.
the world, you know, it's not to own a farm with many animals. It is just simply just trying to make sure that I have the security that I need and my children need.
Oh,
But
thank you.
I do need to enhance it with ownership of something. So we'll talk about that in the next one.
Well, I think you summed it up well. Thank you, Sandra, for sharing your experience that caused you to make that shift and that change from illness to being debt free to now coaching, because that's how I kind of see you. When people speak, I kind of see different things in terms of where they may be and where they can actually go, and I can see you giving seminars to at least 1,000 people in a room of how to improve their finances.
Yeah.
And so, Dana, I appreciate you sharing the fact that you've been in survivor mode for 20 plus years, or less than 20 years, because you look 20 yourself, right? So, so just coming from the sense of survivorship to now thriving, right? And so I think you summed it up saying that, you want to thrive, and ownership is the sense of that. My why is primarily the same reasons you guys say, in terms of leaving something bigger and better for my children. I was medically discharged, found myself in the hospital, and it took me a minute to get back to where I needed to be. So after thinking about, okay, what can I do and still be able to set my own schedule, be able to kind of do what I need to do, I decided to come back into real estate. So for me, it's really just building a better life and becoming profitable. And I guess to both of your points, learning how to create that business. Ultimately, one day I would love the opportunity to not be in it and just have it operate itself, right? So that I can purchase other properties or businesses. And the word that comes to mind is freedom for me. I don't like the idea of someone having to tell me to do something or be someplace, and that's my only alternative. I want to be able to have resources while I'm living, and when I pass, have something for my children to be able to be self-sustaining, and they can do what they want to do. So what I got from the sum of these first three um, episodes is that he was seeking from before he had family, uh, going through failures, having a family, having a business, but seeking to be able to be profitable so that he can spend time with his family, that he shared in episode 3. So I want to thank you guys for coming on this first series. I look forward to seeing you guys in 2 weeks. Ideally, I wanted to have 30 minutes. I'm glad that you decided to engage throughout this process, and I welcome your feedback. If you guys want to send me a text message, shoot me an email on how you want the second one to go, what you liked or didn't like about it. And I welcome you to listen to the next 2 or 3. Each season has anywhere from 5 to 6 sessions in it. And so if you could finish out season 1, that would be in 2 weeks. We'll cover those podcasts. Bring your ahas, your takeaways, so we can have a discussion. And maybe if you guys want, we can have an actual plan that we'll implement each after that particular review, so to speak.
All right. Is this you, Sandra, debt free with Sandley?
It is. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, did you all get anything from this session?
Yes, of course. Every time we get to interact with each other and talk real estate, we're gonna benefit from it in some kind of way. So yeah, so thank you for taking the time. I know how it is, like, making sure you interact with other people on the other side of this camera.
It's not easy.
Yeah, it can be, yeah. So, but at any rate, I think we did cover a lot of things, and nothing is done on accident. We live a purposeful life. And I got a chance to engage with Sandra and you, because I'm going to spend a day with you and find out what you're doing all day long to see what you could do better in exchange for you to come sit down with me and see what I do and I could be doing better. There we go.
There's that. You know what? This is why I like to do this type of podcast and connection. I love making connections. So absolutely, Dana.
Yeah, see what we doing. What we doing in the day.
Well, I'll tell you from today. This morning, I had an appointment with ABC Leadership League. I could tell you what my day looked like today. I made a couple of phone calls, checked on clients that I'm looking to put under contract.
It's gonna be another day though, Nyala.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
She is so excited.
She's about to turn up, wasn't she?
Yeah, because after I get off here, which I'm going to get off now, have a listing appointment, and then I have showings. So that is my day for today. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I never miss an opportunity to crack a joke. So there you go.
Welcome it. I thank you. Thank you so very much. And if there's nothing else, like I said, feel free to text me 570-777-1377. If you have any questions, if you saw something you didn't like, keep the comments to yourself. But if you saw something that you want to improve, feel free to let me know. Because I am a little sensitive. I am an artist.
Right. And I'm sensitive about my words. That's right.
So thank you guys for coming on the first one. And remember, let's be profitable. The goal is to be profitable so we can make sure that we are funding our whys. We have to be able to fund our whys.
Nyala,
right.
before we go, will
Yes,
we going to state anything about the free resources that are available to our center?
Yes, this is the opportunity for you to shine, Sandra.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I actually drafted an email and sent to Deanna, you, and Casey. If you guys could look at that and then send that out to the center. It's the link to the Ramsey Plus that we are getting as a free resource for us, but it costs everyone else at least $129 a year. And that would actually set everybody up to first get the mindset and then put them into budget and wealth building mode.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you for the reminder. Yes, absolutely. Plug into the Dave Ramsey. It's free for us this year. Next year, it may not be. So we need to plug in now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, without further ado, thank you guys again for coming. Have a profitable day, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay, now, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.